here, wherever you're coming from, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on email, whether you're watching this, wherever you are. Thanks so much for joining today. What we're going to be doing is a few things. Number one, I got a special guest here, Dr. Karl May, who is somebody that I had the pleasure of being introduced to maybe a little over a year ago, sometime over a year ago. And we talked and he spoke to our team back and forth for a little while. Then he finally decided to make the leap and go with StemWave. And I remember about a month in, he texted me and I had to like confirm with our team. I'm like, is this real? Like, is he really doing this? And lo and behold, within like 30, 60, 90 days, he was like doing so amazing that we were calling him asking, how are you doing it? What's going on? And we started learning so much from him. And now he's built a great relationship with our team. And I have the honor of calling him a friend. And so Karl May, I'm happy to have you here today. And I've got some exciting stuff to cover with you. How are you doing, man?
We are rocking and rolling. I tell you what. So yes, I've been part of this team, part of this group, this family for a little over a year now. We're going into our 13th month. And actually we talked before that, but
how long ago was it?
It was probably about 16, 18 months prior to me buying the machine and getting involved, because I have to research everything. There's so many things on the market for whether you're a medical doctor, osteopath, physical therapist, chiropractor. I'm a chiropractor. That's out there on the market that you don't want to jump on board. And I don't. So I vetted this with other doctors. I vetted this through social media, through whatever I could find. I got my brain around. I tried to research and I looked at all devices. And, when I settled in and decided this is where I needed to be, I wanted a superior device to work with my patients. And I'm not saying there's not other devices. If you're in any facet, and I'm going to reference a lot of chiropractic references, there's machines for many, many different things. And the biggest thing that I found was this is where I needed to be, not only for me as a practitioner, but for my patients. I've been a chiropractor well over 20 years, about 25 years. We have two clinics. We have both towns we serve here in rural Kansas. 2,500 approximately one, about 1,500 the other one. I was able to get this device, and I will tell you, I purchased it without even consulting with my wife. I ordered it and told her, let's pay for it when it got here. And
18 months in, you didn't even consult with your wife. So let's jump back a little bit, right? So
yeah,
you've practiced for 20 years. You seemingly not only built one good practice, but you built two good practices. Your reviews, I mean, if you just go look them up on Google, obviously people love your practice. They love working with you. They love your staff. Like what was the need to make a change? What was the need to add something new? Like what pushed you to do that?
So the biggest need, I consider myself a good chiropractor. Okay. I'm not going to be arrogant or anything, but I would have patients that would come in and we would get them to a point where they were resolved, but we would have reoccurrences. And, when I would have to refer over to one of my counterparts, whether an orthopedic surgeon or one of my physical therapy companies that I use, referring patients over just because we weren't getting them all the way. But since I have acquired and put this device in use in my office, I mean, our direct referral out of office has really gone down substantially. The direct referral into office has gone up immensely from other practitioners because not everyone has this technology. And by having this technology, you become a focal point of your region, your area, your town, depending on where you're working at, that people are going to say, I have this case of a shoulder problem. And, I've been conservatively treating it with therapy, with rehabilitation, with chiropractic injections, what have you. But the patient still they're not getting anywhere. And when these people are coming over and they're getting results, in 30 days of working with this, in the first treatment phase, these people are walking out of your office with a new hope, a new lease on where they're heading in their healthcare. They actually found somebody who is giving them the answers or the remedies of what their ailment was that they presented with. And that's really where I have gone with this, and within our practice. Again, 2 small towns. Most of what we do as far as patient referral is just word of mouth. But now with
Yeah.
this device, it is spread so much, and we're doing a little bit more social media.
So
One of the
what I'm
things.
hearing is, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off here, but
Oh
I
no.
heard something, which was, what I was hearing was you're getting already great results. And this is the thing we commonly hear from so many practices. You're already doing very well. You're already getting great results, but it felt like there was something missing. I want you to talk more about that. Like, what was there? Was it the cases that you were referring out? Was it some patients plateauing and you just wanted a solution? Like, how did this change things for you just in terms of what types of cases you were able to address and how you were able to help your patients?
Well, I mean, how it changed is, I don't think any doctor likes, and I don't want to use the word fail, but we didn't achieve the objective. We didn't get full resolution to our patients. And that's, I've looked at lasers, I've looked at all different other modality. And, yes, they're beneficial. I have a myriad of stuff that we do here in our office. And we do a higher volume than the average, but it was, I knew there has to be something more. And that's why, it took me so long. And I think if, asking a better question would be, what took me so long to pull the trigger and you and I developed the relationship to get this device? Because now I tell my patients, I regret that I didn't have this technology 25 years ago in my office, because how many more patients would I have been able to get to full resolution to have a problem that came in here? And we have a very high success rate of patient outcome. That's just, we really concentrate on the problem, not the symptom. We want to correct the problem, not just mask it or cover it. And so by taking that approach, we really work individually with a lot of different disciplines. And I've worked in the professional sports arenas. I'm a rural doctor now. I choose that by my own choice. I've been in metropolitan areas. I've worked in St. Louis, where I went to school. I've moved to Wichita, Kansas. We moved more rural out into the outlying areas, and that's really where my focus is, because I enjoy that pace a lot better. But it did. This put me to a place where I was getting better outcomes on my patient interactions, and really that's what it's about: quicker, better outcomes for the more long-standing of the patient resolvement. We want to get that resolvement.
So many people are in the same position that you were in, which is they already get great results, but they're in that waiting period where they're researching, they're speaking to our team, they're doing whatever. Like, what did you do during those 18 months, and what were you looking for? What were you hoping to find?
Well, again, going to our state conventions, national conventions, there would be your device, other competitor devices there, and I'm looking at them and I'm trying to decipher this Greek language of this technology. How does this work? How is this going to benefit? What is the physiological effect on my patients? What's the anatomical effect on our patients? How is this going to work? And I guess that's where I was more reserved. And again, I regret that I waited so long. And I think really in practical sense, a lot of doctors at the end of the day, they look at cost. And I want to just jump to this real quick. They look at cost on why they want to pull a trigger on a device that, is a substantial investment into their practice. But I can assure them, being in a town of 2,500 and my other practice in a town of 1,500, when I'm able to pay for a device in less than 30 days, we had this taken care of because people were flocking in. We were having people come in, and I expressed to my patients, share with your friends, share with your family, share at church, share at your job. Why are you better? Why are you coming back to work, church, wherever? And why do you not have this problem? One of my very first patients that I did with this was a good friend of mine, shoulder problem, had 0 ranges of motion. This was his range of motion. He could not move. And he came in He had been to the orthopedic specialist. They said they were going to do surgery. This was in September of last year. First treatment, he came in, he had full range of motion at the end of the first treatment, and that was the mapping session. This was not even a full treatment. Came in, got a mapping. He was so impressed. He signed up right there. By the fourth visit, he had called his orthopedic specialist, canceled his surgery. And I think any practitioner who's been doing this for a length of time is going to have these same stories. Any of the doctors, when we are on our coaching calls or we're talking about this, every doctor has these cases that come in. But it's not just an isolated case. It's almost every case. On this person came in with plantar fasciitis, neuropathies in their feet, meniscal problems in their knee, edema around the knee, bursitis in the shoulder dysfunction, hand dysfunction, sciatic pain, lumbar pain. I mean, we can, as I just said to a patient before I jumped on this call, my list would be so long, it's hard for me to repeat every single thing. But with the training that you get and you receive through StemWave, and you go back and you mirror that, and don't be afraid to explore somewhat with the technology and say, I'd like to try this. And, part of being in school, which is a part of this program, you can be in there, you can ask doctors, you can reach out to the practitioners that have been doing this for a while and say, hey, did you have a case like this? If they have, they can explain to you how this works and how they accomplished resolution with their patients, so you can pay it forward that way. So that's
and that's what practicing medicine is, right? It's like it's doctors together who are talking about experiences they've had and arriving at the best conclusion, as if it's an evolving science. So, I mean, you finally decided. You said after 18 months, you know what? I guess I'll just give it a shot, Tom. I'll do the thing. And you did it. What were your expectations going into this? What were your expectations and what happened?
Going into this, I think because I did do so much research, I knew what I should be expecting. And that came to fruition. That came perfectly true, because as soon as I started doing this with patients, day one, when I started doing this with patients, I got the result I already knew I was going to be there. Now, some people, they'll just get a device in and they'll kind of learn as they go. I guess I took my education before I actually got the device, whereas some people will get the device and learn as they go. I really encourage, any practitioner, and I've talked with so many of them that have reached out to me and said, hey, you're close to me. Can I come down to your office? Can we go through some things? They'll come down, we'll talk. We'll take an afternoon, generally on a Friday, because I don't work Friday afternoons, and we'll talk and go through things. They go back to their office, usually within a day or two of them being back in their office. They're calling me and saying, man, that was so easy to get to that point. And that's the thing. You can teach this. When we went out to Pittsburgh, and Dr. T trained me, and I just didn't want to go to Fargo with Dr. Barton, but it's just North Dakota, and in Pittsburgh was a little bit more fun. But my wife and I went out there. She's my office manager, because I wanted a couple of us. I wanted a staff member to see how easy it is to learn, but the practitioner also needing to learn how this works. And we went out there, we got our training, and I mean, both coaches are just exceptional on how they train you. But moreover than that, they're open to, if you have a question, you call them. And we're growing that education, that familiarity, and a lot of practitioners, not just myself, but Dr. Gill, there's a lot of other doctors that are more than happy to discuss how they have made this device, this StemWave device, just such a crucial part of their office, because you're helping patients beyond what even your natural ability is. And I'm not saying that, we for over a quarter of a century, we have helped people. We have had patients in. I've had patients that have been with me since day one. Most of my patients all stay with me once they come in. But this has taken them to a new level of, it's that time of year again. And I'm gonna reference back to over a year ago, where these patients would come in, and about the time of year they're coming in. They didn't come in this year during harvest or whatever we have here in Kansas, because they did the StemWave and they didn't have that recurring injury re-exacerbate during that time. And those are your best testimonials, because those are the people who have been with you for so long, but you pushed them into a new realm of health that has got resolution, that doesn't have a reoccurrence. And I'm not saying that injuries can't re-exacerbate, they can happen. You know, a lot of our chronic patients, they have signed up for a maintenance program that we do here in the office. And those people will come in and, you know, whatever we determine that time to be, and they will come in and get maintenance. We have the acute injury patient that comes in, we get full resolution, like the guy I told you with the shoulder. And he's doing wonderful. I just saw him last night watching the Chiefs game at one of our local restaurants in Wichita. I asked him, I saw him there, and I said, hey, how's your shoulder been doing? I haven't seen you in a few months. And he goes, I have felt so great. My shoulder has given me zero problem. I'm playing golf 3-4 times a week. And he goes, that StemWave little contraption you have just was a lifesaver, because I didn't have to have surgery. I mean, those are stories I get daily, and we get that daily in with our patients.
You can't make that stuff up. And I think, I think a concern people have is, even once they get to the point where they say, all right, well, I understand the science. I spoke to the team. I understand I could probably make this work, but it seems like it's going to be really hard to learn. Why don't you talk about how hard it was for you to go from
a spot like that?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just had to mute somebody real quick, but why don't you tell us just how hard it was to ultimately go from I know a little bit to I have it in my office and I can confidently treat patients. How complicated was that? You mentioned you went to the training, but actually using it with patients.
So, yeah, I mean, had the technology, the science under my belt. I mean, that was up in the brain. But when we got there, and it is a little intimidating. You have this big wood crate that shows up in your office, and you unbox it and you look at it and you're like, wow, okay, so this is that. And everybody, if you get it before you go to the training, you're going to play with it. I mean, that's just the nature of doctors and practitioners. You want to play with your new toy. So, we had got it about a week prior to going to our training. I unboxed it, and I watched the videos and I started playing around a little bit with it, but I didn't start treating patients because I didn't want to start treating patients until I got my training. And yeah, once we went to the training, I mean, it seems more intimidating than it is, but if you are capable and able to have one of these devices in your practice, learning it is easy as 1, 2, 3. It truly is. I mean, the company sets you up for not failing. And that's really what I liked about this is the protocols are in place. As long as you learn directionals and how to apply this to the correct energy force, the amount of wavelength you're trying to put and what you're trying to affect, as long as you have that as a practitioner, the machine does it itself. I mean, it's finding the frequency. That's why we do our mapping. That's why we get a very specific, how long are we going to treat this patient in this specific area with this amount of wavelength to get the desired result. And by doing such, we are able to proficiently get our patients. There are devices that, I mean, they will blow through the entire thing. And yeah, I mean, if you hit something with a shotgun, you're going to get some of that shot into what you're wanting to hit, and on the other rest of the shot is going to go broadband on things. But this really acts as a very direct into that point. Once you have mapped properly, you have directly hit a spot of damage to that patient that you're correcting, and by that correction and that healing taking place in there and developing that with that relationship with the patient, then they understand it as well. Now, we're not going to go with our patients and explain the technical on how this wave is working, how this machine is operating. They want to know that this is coming in here. I feel this. I'm getting benefit. That's really what a patient cares about. What we care about as practitioners, are we actually getting value for our patients as well as financially for ourselves? And like I said, that to me is the key point. I added this to my practice for the benefit, like I said earlier, on for my patients. Anything I bring into my clinical settings, either one of my clinics, they are set up the same. I bring them in. If I'm bringing something new in, it is for my patient benefit. I'm not bringing it because if you do it for patient benefit, the financials will follow. And that held true with purchasing the StemWave and having it put into our office. The financials followed because the machine was paid for within 30 days. It did what it was supposed to do. And so by that, you know, we're talking about, you know, how can we expand this into maybe a third clinic. My wife's not happy about that, but you know, doing more of a direct just therapy StemWave, starting to reach out and speak with some of our local schools, universities, seeing how we can expand maybe the knowledge there to keeping our athletes healthy in that realm. I mean, there's so much potential. Working with, if you're in a big city and working with companies that have a high injury rate, working with getting those employees back to, I mean, there's so much potential for this device to be utilized in so many different areas that, you know, it's limitless. It really is. You just have to be willing to put in the time to go get educated, to take your training, and then develop yourself as, I mean, in any practice, and regardless of your vocation. In day one you came out, but by year 10 you were way better than day one because you honed that in. And that's really what this is. You're honing your skills and helping patients. Now, does every patient that walks into my clinics, do they get StemWave? No. There's patients that I haven't qualified. Maybe they have a full tear and surgery is an option. I send those over to the surgeon. But I had 2 pec tear patients. They ironically came in 2 days apart. Went in, sent them both over, got their surgical repair. Both of them came back to me a week later after their surgeries. We did StemWave on them. Both of them reported at the end of 30 days back to the orthopedic specialist that did their repair, and they had full ranges of motion. And they were just, those 2 surgeons, separate surgeons, were amazed on how rapidly and quickly these patients responded. By that response, they said, "This, I went and saw Dr. May. He did this StemWave on me. I encourage you to look at it and get it in your office, but if not, send your patients post-surgically to him." And hopefully we've opened doors that way. So a lot of times, especially in the surgical cases, you don't have to do much because your patients are going to be your best advocates when they go back to those specialists.
Yeah, post-surgical is incredible in terms of just how fast it can get somebody healing. But you brought up a good point a moment ago, which is, you know, you bought this for your patients, and that's why you did this. And it just turns out that the results you got as a result of getting those results, it had a great impact on the business. Now, a lot of people have been running their practice for a while, and they haven't introduced anything new to their patients. They've never brought a new technology in. They're not sure if it'll be well adopted. How did you go about that? How did you go about introducing this to your patients, and how was it adopted? Was it easy to get people to try it? Was it easy to get people to end up signing up for care?
So, you know, as far as that would go, there's you're going to have 2 sets of patients. You're going to have the set that, well, if Dr. May's brought this in here, it's going to be golden. It's, you know, he doesn't go out and just get everything. I have patients that bring me stuff all the time that they find on the internet. I said, if you want to waste your money, it's a nice little gadget, but it's not going to help. So they know I don't buy into the misinformation on some things, because everybody wants to sell something in this world. That's just the basis of it. And then you have these patients that have their reservations. So the patients that are over here that say, yeah, I'm going to do this because Dr. May is recommending it. And there's these patients over here that say, well, I don't know enough about this. I've heard of electric stim. I've heard of ultrasound. You know, I've heard of some of this, but I've never heard of this StemWave. And then those are the patients I actually sit down and we take a nice I don't take all day and give a lecture to them. I take 3 to 5 minutes. I explain how it works, why it works, and what the benefit of it is. And then we talk about, you know, an introductory, just come in for a mapping. Generally, I will tell you at 100%, there is a switch in demeanor of that patient that has that reservation over here their switch in demeanor when they come in for a mapping, and we do it at a very low cost. We'll map them and they'll like, I feel a difference just with that. And I'm like, how do you think you're going to feel when I finish? When we get done through a protocol, when we get through a treatment session, how do you think you're going to feel when you don't have this problem? You're not waking up in the morning with a sore shoulder. You can go play golf with your friends. How do you think you're going to feel when you don't have these problems anymore? Now, I never tell my patients, and I don't think any practitioner should say this, you're never not going to have any pain. life is hard and we live through it. But if you have a patient that comes in and you give them 50% back of what they didn't have, they are going to be ecstatic. They are going to be off the moon happy because you gave them back a quality of life that they did not have. But, and I have high expectations for my offices. We try and shoot higher than that 50%. We shoot for as high as their potential will allow us to do. And sometimes that's full resolvement. They consider themselves 100% resolved. Do they come back into my office? Yes. They come back in for chiropractic. They come back in for wellness checks. They come back in for maintenance, depending on where the patient is in their lifestyle, their age. What do they need? If I have a younger person in here, say a college athlete, growth plates are closed, they had an injury, I'm probably not going to have that patient in as regularly because we resolved their injury. That's part of it. But, there's just so much, there's such a diversity on how this expands your practice. Because I guarantee that there's no way that this won't expand what you're doing in your office. Because as soon as you do that 3, 5, 10 patients, and they go tell those people, and then those people are referring people, and then those people go, it's just, it cascades out. And that happened not only for me, but for other practitioners I've been helping along here, other practitioners I've talked with on either chats or phone calls. That's how it's working. Has there been practitioners, this just isn't working in my office? Well, what are you doing? Well, nothing. I put a sign up out there. Are you talking about it with your patients? Are you explaining how this can benefit? So, it's not just because you have a pretty new device in your office. It's you have to explain. You have to educate your patients. And, if the practitioner doesn't educate, and generally that's what it amounts down to, because you're going to have your own focus of what comes into your office, but then it's going to start expanding out into your communities, into your counties. And that's really where we are here a year later. We nailed down our first focal patients. Then we went more outside into our cities and the little surrounding cities. Now we're hitting counties. So we're actually getting people from counties, and these people are now referring to us. And, that's what's causing us, because we didn't want to grow so exponentially that we didn't have time for all our patients. I know sounds like a tough problem to have, but, we wanted to grow healthily. And by that, we kept expanding what we were doing.
Now, why don't you give the audience a gauge on, a lot of these offices, they're seeing different types of patients, different types of conditions. And it sounds like you're seeing a lot of different things as well. Why don't you give us a rundown on some of the most common cases that you see and really what you expect from a clinical perspective in terms of progression? How many visits does it take? What are these common cases? And what's the progression of improvement you're seeing for your patients with it?
I would say probably the most common golden thing that you're going to see on this are going to be shoulders and knees. By far, when people they need their wheels to work. So knees, everyone seems to have a knee problem. And I kind of take a theory, if you have a 1 knee problem, you have a 2 knee problem because you've been overpressuring the other side. But knees are golden. And a lot of times you're dealing with MCL problems, meniscus problems, arthritic problems on the tibial head, the tibial crest up there. The resolution when those patients are starting to actually heal, it's just incredible, and it's dramatic. You see a difference in these patients between one treatment to the next treatment. Shoulders, again, I referenced the one patient, friend of mine that I saw last night. It's so dramatic in those. Some of the things that you're going to see a more subtlety in, Your neuropathies, your plantar neuropathies, they may be a little bit of slower healing. Treating into the lumbar, sacral area, sciatic pain may be a little bit slower because you're trying to put frequency through a lot of tissue there. And so you may have a little bit of a drawback on that, but it does take time. What we tell our patients when they come in and we're talking about, okay, here I've diagnosed your problem, we've recommended the StemWave. I usually bring Lindy in at that point. We talk about the financials. Well, the first question always, how much and how long? That's the two questions everybody wants to know when they're talking with patients is how long is this going to take and how much do I need to pay? Well, we talk about what, if you went this conservative route or surgery or whatever, this is what you're looking at spending here. This is what we charge. The length of period of time is generally between an 8 and 12 visits. So we tell patients we average it about 10. If you sign up for a package, we talk about 10 visits. And about 10 visits, we should have the resolvement that we desire. And at that point, in somewhere in that 8 to 12 visit range, we'll tell a patient, hey, okay, you would benefit from every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, whatever their condition is, because you can't pigeonhole this into one hole. It has to be conditions. What are they dealing with? If I have a 67-year-old male with diabetes that comes into my office that's having foot neuropathy and hasn't felt his feet for 4 years, it was 4 years, and then we did this, and all of a sudden on the third visit, I'm wiping the gel off the bottom of his feet. He retracts and says, "That tickled, doc." And I looked at him and said, "It what? It tickled?" And it was like a lightning bolt hit him, and he said, "I felt my foot for the first time in 4 years." That type of moment. Now that patient right there, again, he's insulin dependent diabetic. He came in, his feet turned back to a normal color instead of that bright red color. And he's coming in monthly. He chose that because he doesn't want to go back to that. And it's benefited him so much because now he's getting more active. He's walking more. He feels like he has more energy because he's exercising. He's sleeping better. And all we did was treat his feet. We treated his feet with StemWave and I adjusted him. That's it. I mean, he was in my office for a brief period of time, but he's coming back once a month. So, that condition may be a longer standing one. There's other conditions. Both my pec tears that I was talking about post-surgical, they're probably going to be released probably within their next visit, maybe 2, because they have full resolvement. They have full range of motion. They've already, in 30 days, were released from the surgeon, and the surgeon was saying, well, I'm probably going to have to check you every month for the next 3 months just to see how your outcome is. They got released both within 30 days. But again, that's the thing. They wanted full resolvement. And these are younger people. These are young. One's 23, the other one's 25. Young people with these injuries. And it's not that they understand, and they're extraordinarily thankful that they came to our office, that they found out about this from a friend of a friend. They came in, I educated them, we treated them, and they couldn't, and they're my best advocates. So, this is so beneficial for so many different things. It's hard to answer your question. How would you say, what are the best things? Yes, my answer would be yes. The best thing is the device, how you apply it. But I would say probably the golden thing, if you're asking about best outcomes, patient outcomes, would be knees and shoulders. I had a pitcher from one of our universities came in with an elbow problem. I had a patient who works at our aircraft companies here, had a radial retinopathy. We treated that 6 times and he had 0 pain. And, it was a shorter part of the protocol, but, he got that. And he wanted to save his other visits to come back in a month and a month. And we did that. We worked with him on his protocols, but it was amazing for him that this worked so promptly and so quickly. And he has had 0 pain. Matter of fact, his daughter is working for me part-time, so I kind of keep an update on how her dad is doing. So yeah, it's hard to isolate the one things, but I will tell you probably some of the things that are a little bit slower, but we still get resolution, are maybe some of the, like I said, the pelvic, the deeper tissue penetrating things may be a little bit more challenging, may take a little bit more energy, a little bit more time, but you still get an excellent, far excellent result than if we had not done it at all.
Wow. Wow. And we'll shift here in a moment to some live Q&A. So if you're in the audience and you've got any questions, you can shoot them right in the chat. I already see that we've got a couple. If you're on Facebook, you can shoot them right in the chat. But before we shift to that, I've got one final question here for you, which is, we've got a lot of people here, and we've got a lot of people who are really considering this technology, and they're kind of just on the edge of it, but they're not really sure if they're going to be able to make the whole thing work. They're not really sure if it's ultimately going to be worth it. And if you sat down with one of those people and you had to give them any piece of advice, what would be the advice that you'd give to them for somebody who's just still on the edge of their seat, wondering if this is the right thing for their practice?
And again, they don't know me from Adam. And the best advice I will tell you, because again, I've been around for a long time. I consider a long time. My regret is I didn't act sooner, because I could have been helping people sooner. The best advice, and I know the company, they work with the practitioners. They don't set you up for failure. They set you up for success. And by setting you up for success, it's really a no-lose situation. If you follow the protocols and you have reservation, I took the financial out of the equation. That's why I went and bought it, before I actually told my wife that I bought it in our practice and it showed up. I took that, if you want to call it a leap of faith, and I'm not asking them to take a leap of faith, because I took it. I took that leap of faith knowing that this is what I needed in my office. That's what we did. We took that leap of faith, and it really wasn't a leap of faith, because in my mind, I already knew the science. I already knew the practicality of how this was going to work. So it couldn't have failed, because I've already done so much to set myself up for success of this. And like I said, I'm in a rural area. I mean, you would think that it would be so hard to get this in a rural farming area. Let me put it that way. Farmers don't buy anything unless they absolutely need it. But when the farmers are coming in here and say, hey, my neighbor came in and saw you for this, that's where I'm saying it speaks for itself. It actually promotes itself. And all you have to do is deliver on what it does. Because you as the practitioner are only using this tool to do what it's meant to do. And if you're doing that, it's going to take care of itself pretty proficiently and pretty quickly, because the results are in the patient. Patients are getting resolvements. And I know there's other practitioners who have this device, and there's one that is really exploring into a lot of other applications that maybe I don't feel as comfortable doing, but they're in another part of the country and they can do that. But as far as our practice acts here in Kansas, we're pretty open on what we can do. And I mean, there's been some stuff I've got on. I've talked with Dr. Barton or Dr. Tony and said, hey, I want to try this. What's your opinion? And they're like, okay, well, that's a good opinion. We really don't teach that. And I said, give me some pointers here, because this is how I vision this going. And I've got great results. I mean, it's just been, I had a patient, a car accident, 2 fractured thumbs, and they were hairlines, but they weren't full commuted fractures, but hairline fractures. Did it on their thumbs. In 2 weeks, went back to the orthopedic specialist because of their car wreck. The orthopedic specialist did not see the cracks in there. Now, that was incredible. I mean, that patient was just blown away, as well as the orthopedic specialist. Yeah, that patient was my wife. She had a very traumatic accident last September. So it was one of those things that, yeah, your spouses are always your first guinea pigs. I will tell you that. I was treating her for some of the stuff that she had, but then she had the accident and we did that. So it proliferated the healing effects of the bone to start forming the osteoclastic centers. So that way the bone healed, and it healed in a very proficient manner. So
I remember talking to you after that occurred over the phone, and it didn't occur to me at the time that StemWave was going to be a part of that recovery plan, but I'm grateful to hear that everything has gone smoothly.
Yeah,
Um, so, you know, shifting to some of these questions that
yeah.
have come in here, we've got we've got a question from Malcolm that said, what was your break even from your initial investment, traveling, training, revenue? It might be useful to, Carl, remind me, did you finance this equipment? Did you pay for it outright?
So, yeah, what I did is I actually I financed it through my malpractice company that I use. I financed it through there, and so sent them over a check, or not a check, but they financed and sent you guys the check. And I made sure when I did this, I had set it up. I'm going to pay this off as promptly as I can. So with my initial investment of the purchase of the device, traveling, and it depends on where your location in the country is. Of course, there's factors involved, but going to one of the trainings, and again, what they send you through StemWave sets you up to automatically start advertising in your own offices. So, I mean, just putting your banner up, this banner that I have right behind me, right here, we just put it in the lobby. Okay. We have another little placard we sent up where they checked out. That's really what we did for advertising initially. Now, there's other doctors that are more tech savvy that are going to go and start promoting a lot of stuff on the internet, social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. That's great. Get the word out there. And I think that's really good. But my travel expenses were probably less than $1,000 just to go travel, hotel, rental car, etc. were less than $1,000 to go get that training. And like I said, it's such a minute part of it. And I've said this throughout. We paid for, in a town of 2,500 where, there's only so many patients, but we do drag from outer areas. We were able to pay for this in 30 days. I sent a check back after I received it and started doing this. 30 days actually from when we started, I sent a check in payment in full back to NCMIC for the payment of my device
Yeah,
in 1 month.
that's incredible.
And that's what I'm saying. But that could be done anywhere. It could be done in a major metropolitan.
Yeah, and by the way, it happens all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Dr. May is not alone. Dr. May is here on the call today, but there's 450 other providers in our network. And so, to give further context too, Malcolm, to answer your question, the average monthly payment generally ends up being between $1,000 and $1,200 a month. The average care plan that Carl's talking about is between $1,000 to $1,750, maybe $2,000 per area, depending on how you're charging for it. And so you really only need to be doing one area, one treatment, one patient to make this thing cash flow positive. It's hard to not make it cash flow positive. And Carl's being humble in saying he was able to pay it off in 30 days. I mean, you guys, most of you on the call have an idea. You've spoken to our team, you know what the device cost, right? So do the math there. It's really hard to make this thing not cash flow positive. So, with that, another question from Holly in here, Carl, was from your initial session, your initial mapping session, what percentage do you transition into treatment generally?
Into treatment? I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry, you locked up on me.
I think I lost my audio real quick. Can you hear me now?
I'm gonna say you locked up on me for a second.
Yeah. I was saying, Holly asked, how, like, from your initial treatment, the initial mapping session, what percentage transition into a full care plan after that?
Okay. And again, I don't like to break. I mean, we have some rules here in Kansas about talking about financials, but as far as patients when they come in for that initial mapping, and again, it's right here. It's on the website. We charge $49 for an initial mapping per regional area. So if I mapped a shoulder and a knee, we get $49 a mapping for those. Okay. Then if we say, okay, this is going to be very beneficial for you, then we talk about treatment protocols. We give them an option. You know, this could be a very short-term, limited. Maybe the treatment plan isn't, you know, and our treatment plans are a little bit longer. So, you know, in that 10 visit range, maybe it's something that could be self-resolving in maybe 4 to 6. We say, okay, this is what it's going to cost per treatment session that we do. Now, if you sign up for a protocol, then those treatment sessions are oh yeah, okay. Sorry, my wife, office manager, is right next to me. She's my stat girl. She does all my taxes, so she just gave me my stats right here. But of over the last year, of every single person that I have mapped, without exception, there's only been 2 in the last 13 months that did not sign up. Both of them found it beneficial. Their remarks were, that feels really great, but I'm going to wait for my shoulder to completely tear before I come and do this. I mean, that was one of the, I know, that was my response. And I'm like, don't you want to prevent that from happening? But that was one of the responses. But when we have done this and qualified that patient to go back and receive StemWave, they sign up. Because once we do that mapping and they get that relief instantaneously, they get a bit of relief initially to a lot of relief initially. But that next morning, I can tell you probably 50-60% of my patients will call me that next morning. And usually we do a 2 to 4 day follow-up depending on, you know, weekends or what have you. But they'll call me the next day and say, oh my gosh, doc, I woke up this morning and it's like a thunderbolt hit me. I'm like, well, good. I'm glad. That's why we did what we did. So we'll see you we'll see you tomorrow, or we'll see you on Monday, whatever it may be, and we go forward from there. But that's what I'm talking about as far as the initial, when you get that patient in there, you know, and we've had a couple, I'll say, hesitance where you did the mapping, maybe not today, but by the end of the week, they're calling and scheduling with Lindy to get on the books, because they're like, okay, yeah, that was amazing. So again, the device, if you do this and how you're taught, sells itself, because those patients got something back that they haven't had, because generally the patient you're going to do this on has a high number of pain. You know, on a scale from 1 to 10, they're in that 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 number, where they just don't like where they are right now health-wise. You give them back 50% of that. Say they're a 6, and then the next day they wake up, they're a 3. I mean, you just rocked their moon. I mean, it was just incredible for them.
It's huge. Yeah, and you know, if you do the math on, you know, Carl's probably talking about 95+%, and you know, that won't be the case for every office. Not everybody is as good, but the average that we see, to give you an idea, Holly, we expect, you know, Dr. Manison, one of our clinical advisors, at a minimum, we expect 80% improvement for 80% of the patients, 80% of the time. And that's kind of a good framework that you can go off of. If you get really good, if you get amazing at it, you'll do even better than that. But 80% improvement for 80% of the patients, 80% of the time is generally a pretty good framework for you to think about. So another question from Malcolm here: can a nurse practitioner or medical assistant be trained? This is totally state dependent, Malcolm, depending on where you're located. With that being said, you know, a lot of our offices have nurse practitioners, medical assistants, chiropractic assistants, physical therapy assistants using it. So dependent on your state, but the answer is probably yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it varies from state to state on what your state laws are and the requirements. But yeah, for the most part, you know, it is considered, I know in Kansas, a modality device. So yeah, you can have staff, but be trained to do this. But again, I always advise the practitioner to make sure they are getting trained in this. And I know in my office, and again, we're high volume and patient productivity is really at the forefront of what we want to do. But I do every one of my mappings. We have certain increments of time when we have new patients for this that want to be mapped, I come over and I do 100% of my mappings, because I don't expect my staff, I don't expect anybody to know that anatomical, that diagnostic, that diagnosis of what I'm wanting to do with the patient. And what I do is I put that in my clinical record to, I'm treating the supraspinatus, labrum, bicipital tendon. Okay. I found where I want it treated. Then my staff will do some follow-up care specifically under my order, doing those areas and in that protocol. And so I set it up, I make the recipe, and they finish the cooking. Okay. They're going to go in there and, they'll do the weeklies. But no, we have certain times of the week, of the day, I should say, that this is when we are putting new StemWave people in there. And I come over and do that. But the follow-up care is done with my staff, but it does depend on each individual state, what they allow and who they allow to run devices.
Awesome. And I'm just running around kind of answering these questions. So forgive me if I don't get to yours, because I've got them coming in on Facebook. I got them emailed before, and I've got some of them coming in on Zoom too. So if you don't get your question answered, feel free to send it in again, or even email us after it's over, because we're coming up on the hour here. But I'll get another question in, which is, what is the average, what does the pricing schedule look like for a care like this? I think they're more asking, like, what's the range of like, how does it end up, per session or per area?
So, and again, that goes back to, and I'm going to answer the question without giving very specific dollar amounts, because it's going to vary.
Totally fine.
It's going to vary, because the cost of a gallon of gas in California may not be the same cost of a gallon of gas in Kansas. Okay. So how I'm going to say is, you need to see where your regional, what is your regional area, and what is your cost of living expenses there. Now, I will tell you, again, if we're doing individual sessions, practitioners are going to probably be charging per session anywhere between $150 and $250 per treatment session. Okay. If it's a short-term thing and they didn't sign up for a protocol. However, a lot of doctors, if they sign up for a package deal, which would cover that 10 visits, give or take 8 to 12, we give a little bit of a discount on that, because they are paying in full upfront. So when a patient pays in full upfront, 95% of the time, they're going to fulfill that commitment then to their health and to their care. So by them committing to coming into our office, we give them a little bit of a discount, which antiquates to what, probably?
Percentage wise?
Yes.
Oh, roughly 28.
Okay, so in the 20% discount is what we give them if they sign up. Now, and if I'm going to go a little different direction, say I have a patient, and again, this is a per region. So say I have a patient that comes in and they want a shoulder done and a knee done. Okay, so that's 2 regions. So each region has its own specific treatment protocols. Again, we will give a little bit of a discount for that second region. Okay, so for that second region, they pay for the first region, then we'll give them a little bit more of a discount, because you're already there. You have the patient in there. I'm treating their shoulder, and I'm going to treat their knee. So you're not getting the patient into your office, getting their vital statistics, getting a new history of current what's happening, getting over to treatment area. You're treating a shoulder, and then you're dropping down to the knee. So we do give a discount for that, because my staff member is right there. They're already working it. So they're just going to do 2 regions instead of 1 region. But again, financially, as I said earlier, you have a 1 knee problem, you probably have a 2 knee problem. And as we begin to investigate on exam, yes, their right knee may be really, really, really sore, really, really bad. And then I start doing my orthopedic test on my left knee, and it's like, that is a little sore. It's not as bad as the right. So a lot of times they'll want to have both knees taken care of. They're there. I explain to them, you're here. We can do right knee, left knee, both knees at the same time, right shoulder, left shoulder. We can do those at the same time. it really is dependent on what they're presenting with. If you've got somebody who has an injury, just one shoulder, and it's a recent, new, fresh injury, you're probably only going to do a one region. But if you have somebody who goes out and plays tennis and their knees have been hurting for the last 15 years, but this time it's just the right knee that's hurting more, encourage them to get them both done, because they are going to work the right knee and the left knee, because they're not going to stop playing tennis if they are a tennis player or a golf player or whatever it is they do for, for their fun. So, you just have to really take it with the patient and break it down to what are you treating? How are you treating? If they have multiple areas, I know personally in our office, and I know this varies from practitioner to practitioner, but I will only treat 2 regions at any given treatment time. Now, that doesn't mean I have patients that come in that have 2 shoulder problem, right and left shoulder, right and left knee. They won't get all 4 treated on the same day. They'll come back. I'll do the right shoulder and left shoulder on a Monday. They'll come back on a Wednesday, and I'll do their right knee and their left knee, because we have to allow for healing to happen. If you try and put too much energy through any person at any time, you're going to impede their healing process. And that's not what we're here to do. We're here to promote the healing process.
That's right. That's right. And I think, I'll tell you what we see at a national level. Dr. Karl is absolutely right. The average care plan, or the average cost per treatment that's generally charged anywhere from $100 to $200. You take that, you multiply it by 10. The average care plan is going to be between $1,000 and $2,000 per area. Patients are generally going to have a minimum of 1, often 2, and sometimes they might come with even more concerns that either need to be addressed now or later, down the road. And so that's generally what we see. And with that, we're coming up on the hour here. So I'm unfortunately, if I couldn't get to your question, feel free to email us at just support@stemwave.com, or you can email me directly, tom@stemwave.com. Happy to answer any questions you've got. I'm
open to. I can give you my email address. I'm fine with that, because I have doctors who reach out to me all the time. So
yes,
if I could
what's your email as well?
And you want to talk just a one-on-one, and maybe there's a question that you have that you didn't want to ask, I'm going to be very transparent with you. Again, I am doing this. Tom asked me to do this, and I said, you know what? This is me giving back to my fellow practitioners that are out here trying to save the world by giving good health care. That's why I'm here. This is for you, the doctor, you the practitioner who wants to make a better life for your patients. And so that's what we're here to do. So you can email us at it's Karl with a K, Karl May, May, DC @hotmail.com.
And I'll drop that in the chat right now. And just for those of you guys who are here, I see some people asking more technical questions about mechanism of action, this, that, the next thing. I just dropped a link to our 20-minute masterclass. It's from one of our lead clinical advisors. It's 20 minutes, walks through all of the science, all the studies, everything you guys need. So if you have more questions on that, you can just click that link. With that being said, Dr. May is absolutely not alone. I know this has been wonderful for everyone to meet him. There's 450 other practices throughout the country who have also had great success with this. We've had a 98% success rate with all of the practices that we've worked with. What does that mean? It means we gave them a chance to try it in their clinic for 60 days, generally at no cost. And they loved it so much, not only for their patients first and foremost, but secondarily, it was able to offer them enough of an ROI for them to say, yeah, I want to keep this in my practice. And so if you're considering whether you want to add this to your practice, if you're considering whether you want to try this, the best place to start, and we don't work with every practice transparently, there's some practices it's just not a good fit for, but if you want to see if you qualify to work with this technology in your office and you want to see if you can get started for absolutely no cost for 60 days and try it with your patients, you can just go to stemwave.com. You could book a call directly with our team, and that's always the first step in our process. It's a very educational process. We'll walk you through everything. And if it's a good fit, we can talk about next steps, and hopefully you can have, even an ounce of the success that Karl has had with our technology. I'm sure, many of you would be very happy to have that. And most importantly, Dr. May, I want to thank you a ton just for your time here today. And I'm grateful to have you in our community. I'm grateful for the success that you brought to StemWave. And I can't thank you enough for coming today.
Well, thank you for asking me to come and speak with people. And again, I'm always open to any type of questions, or if people have questions about, the actual practical application. And again, you're a company that has a device. I'm a practitioner who is using it in real life practice. And really that's what it's about. How can we benefit? And I want you to make the best decision you've ever made in your life is by getting this device to your practice. And that doesn't come whole very lightly on me, because I'm kind of tight on things and I over research stuff. But honestly, this was a slam dunk for our office, and it's been nothing but very financially and beneficial for our patients here in the office. So thanks again, Tom, for having us.
I can't think of a better note to end on, Karl. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Thank you guys all so much for coming.
Enjoy your weekends. Thank you, guys.